Gauteng Education MEC Matome Chiloane says his department has placed 99.8% of the almost 270,000 learner applications. The department says only 0.1% of parents are yet to accept their placement offers. Chiloane also added that they will open late applications for learner placements from the 18th of December until January. All right, for more on that discussion, let's welcome Gauteng Education Spokesperson, Mr. Steve Mabona, here in studio. Steve, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Look, I understand the MEC gave an update today on learner placements across the country. Do give us an update, an overview of what also he touched on in terms of the issues that are still plaguing the placement process.
Thank you very much, and to all our viewers. What is important is that the 0.1% that we still need to place, we are making sure that, because there is a challenge of capacity in Gauteng, we are preparing schools that are going to accommodate those learners. And we are aware that there are parents that when you place children in the satellite schools, to a certain extent, some they don't believe that there will be anything there because some went to the sites where satellite schools are supposed to be established, and they found nothing, so they were very skeptical that something will happen. But we can reassure all parents that our infrastructure guys will not be going on leave. They will be working throughout. All the satellite schools that we have identified, they're going to be established. So when we open for academic year 2024, children will be in the classes.
All right, and who are these kids, the part of the 0.1%, Steve, that are still not placed? Is it children that don't have the proper documentation? Is it children belonging to foreign nationals? Who exactly is part of that, or is it late applications as well?
No, it's not late applications, and it's not incomplete documents. Incomplete documents, we have about 30,000 of those that we're going to accommodate. We said from Monday, they will have to go back into the system, and they will be placed. And what they need to do, they need just to take the documents. When the schools open, they must submit those documents. To a certain extent, we're going to be opening for late application on the 18th. That is next week. We will be opening for late application, but there we're going to be availing schools that have capacity. So we are aware that there are parents that have lodged objections.
Yes.
And those that have lodged appeals. So the 0.1%, it will be those parents that would have probably given them space, but it's schools that they don't prefer and schools that they didn't apply to. But because we are so highly pressured, we really call, for patience and for parents to work with us, because we cannot overcapacitate a school to a certain extent that if we don't have space for putting mobiles, there's nothing we can do. We need to then have alternative spaces that will accommodate learners.
And speaking of those parents that have raised some concerns, Steve, I mean, can parents decline those transfer offers, submit objections as well as appeals? Where and how can they do that?
All this is happening in the system.
Okay.
System bound.
Where they registered originally.
Where they registered, they need to go object there. But you cannot object the school that you applied to.
Okay.
Because there are parents that would have applied to 5 schools. Out of the 5 schools, a parent will have their own preference, which you will not know as the department. You give a parent a school there, they say, no, I didn't want this one. I just applied. So you cannot object to that because it's a school that you applied to. So we have placed them there, and they need to work with us and make sure that they accept those.
In terms of placement, Steve, I mean, where parents come in as well, the complaint from them, I think, has been vastly about the fact that where government has placed their kids is not necessarily where they want. That's the first option. And secondly, a lot of parents have complained that they've had their children placed in a completely different district to where they are living. So it makes it hard for them to have transportation for those kids. How are you resolving those matters to ensure that the kids are placed in nearby schools which are efficient for the parents as well?
Now, we want to call upon parents to work with us, work with the officials, because to a certain extent, some parents would have applied wrongly, using a, over 30-kilometer radius or within 30-kilometer radius. It then give them schools that are in that area. So they need to then go back to their office, and we rectify that. We've rectified many of those that were placed very far from, where they were living. Some, for an example, someone that stays in Imondio will then be placed in Cosmo City. We will rectify those, but then still parents will say, no, I don't want these schools. There are drugs there, there's ill discipline. And we are saying, let's work together. Where there's ill discipline, SGB is there for a purpose. Let's turn the corner and change around our schools.
All right. And then in terms of the complaints usually around the system overpacking and crashing, how have you corrected that to ensure it doesn't happen anymore, Steve?
Now we've passed that. Our system is machined. It moves. There's nowhere where we have had system challenges.
Okay.
Our challenge is capacity. That's where we are appealing to parents that we will not be in a position to place in your preferred school, school that you want, but to a certain extent, we will accommodate. We will not take a child that has only English and Afrikaans back in the township where there's no English and Afrikaans. If such happen, then they need to interact with us and we rectify those. But it's not a system issue. It's just a preference which we can then rectify. And
then, Steve, those children that the parents basically raise concern or appeals about where their children are placed, apparently they are taken out of the schooling system. So what happens in the meantime? Are they able to then continue doing their classes while at home, while you are waiting to also look into placing them at other schools?
What we will normally do is to encourage parents to work with us, because we cannot place in a school that is not comfortable in terms of your curriculum delivery, in terms of the necessary language. So the only challenge that we'll have, parents will not prefer a certain school for different reasons.
But do they have a choice, Steve? Is that what you're saying? Parents can literally come and say, I want my child enrolled at the school. And if that fails, then the department has to look elsewhere.
We have a constitutional obligation to place all children of a school-going age must be in a classroom. So if you have other alternatives, then it's up to you as a parent. But we have an obligation to place a child, and they will place a child, but not unreasonable, like as we've already indicated. That's why we have an objection process and we have an appeal process. And the objection, they look at it, reasonably so. If they see that there's a justification of changing and giving you what you want as per your motivation, they do that. Cases that are going for an appeal, they go to the MEC. You will also look at those cases, and if there's justifiable reasons why we must change our decision, they do that. That's why we've availed that so that parents can be assisted.
All right, thank you, Steve. Hopefully we'll be having great news when the new academic calendar starts in January. All right, thank you so much. That is Gauteng Education Spokesperson, Mr. Steve Mabona, giving us an update on learner applications as we head into the new academic year.